I'd like to begin my talk this morning with a story. 20 years ago, literally, I think it was this week in February, I was the president of the Sears credit card business based in Chicago. And that's not the important part. The important part was that I was going to Miami to give a speech to a trade association where it was 85 degrees and beautiful out, unlike the weather in February in Chicago. And what I typically did is I would go into the store and see how things were going, talk to employees, see what we in the credit card business could do to generate more sales. And I had some time, so I went into the store and I walked into the garden center in this particular entrance. And when I went into the store, I saw what you would expect to see. I saw lawnmowers, shovels and rakes, patio furniture, barbecue grills, and then all the way out in the corner, I saw 4 snowblowers. And I thought maybe I was hallucinating. So I walked over there, and sure enough, there were 4 snowblowers on the sales floor. And so I went to the salesman who was there, who was an older fellow, and he had his name Pete on his jacket. And I said to him, "Why are there snowblowers in Miami?" And he said, "Oh, you don't know the whole story." I said, "I don't know any part of the story." He said, "We get the snowblowers every September with instructions to put them on the floor, and then we pack them up in April and we send them back to the warehouse." And I said, "Well, when did this start?" He goes, "I've been here 30 years. As long as I've been here, we've been doing that." And so I said, "Well, what do you do about it?" He says, "Well, my boss calls headquarters, and the store manager calls headquarters." And I said, "Well, what do they say?" And they tell him it's part of the national allocation. And I said, "Well, Pete, do you know what that means?" And he says, "I have no idea what that means." So then I said to him, "Have you ever sold a snowblower in Miami?" And he said, "Actually, we did sell one." I laughed like you. He said there was this couple who were going to visit their kids in Minneapolis for Christmas. They bought one, put it in the minivan, and drove it up to Minneapolis. And I said, "And that's it?" He goes, "Yeah, that's it." So I went back to my office and I said to my assistant, "Stop what you're doing. I want you to call anyone you can call. I want to know how many times it snowed in Miami since the history of recorded weather." And she called the Weather Service, NASA, the Farmers Almanac. She called anybody you could call. And she came back in about 45 minutes and said, "Okay, here's the answer. It snowed one time, 1/3 of an inch, 7 years ago." And so, that somehow made an indelible mark in me about sort of dysfunction. That was 20 years ago. And I think about it all the time. And I think about all the things that happened prior to that happening. And I thought about all the things that have happened in the ensuing 20 years. I came up with these 5 principles of engagement because what I really believed is that the problem is that people are not engaged. And I deliberately call them principles versus rules because rules are very rigid. Principles are not. They're more guidelines. They're things you should be thinking about. And I codified them into 5. So let me go in and just quickly hit what the 5 principles are. Fresh eyes is very simple. It's taking a totally different look at the situation. It's really as if you were to step outside and look in. What does this room look like as opposed to all of us being in this room and looking outside? Connecting relates to your relationship as a leader with your employees and your customers. These by far are the 2 most significant constituencies you have to deal with in a business. And most people seem to forget that connecting is a big part of their job. The 3rd is transparency. This really is about being open, about sharing information, about being honest with your employees and your customers, and treating them like adults. The 4th principle I call hot buttons. Hot buttons really is code for choosing the 2 or 3 critical things that happen in your business that if everything else stopped, these are the 3 things you wanted to focus on. These are the things that move the needle. These are the things that drive profits. These are the things that drive growth. Mario Andretti has a very great expression. If your car's under control, you're not going fast enough. I don't want you to leave here saying, Steve told us we should drive 95 miles an hour. But I think there's something to be said about speed.
Steve Goldstein is a proven leader. With over 35 years of experience, Steve has held executive positions with leading brands such as Chairman and CEO of American Express Bank, President of Sears Credit, and Executive at Citigroup. Currently, Steve is an advisor to executives and leadership teams and is chairman of U.S. Auto Sales. Also, senior advisor to Alvarez & Marsal, Milestone Partners, and EQT Capital, based in Stockholm, Sweden. He has also served on a number of boards. His book, Why Are There Snowblowers in Miami, is his latest endeavor to help your business transform into a success story by using his 5 principles of engagement. Steve's speaking events are both dynamic and engaging. You can learn more about Stephen Goldstein, his book, Why Are There Snowblowers in Miami, and his speaking events by emailing him.